General, Franklin George Wilkins III at your service. I've heard so much about you. It's nice to finally meet.
I know about you too. You're the hack man, the hero who saved us from the robots.
I hear a little bit of sarcasm in your voice, but maybe I'm just a little tired from my last mission, finding that signal from the island in the South Pacific. You'll be pleased to know that the signal was just an automated machine. No AI involved. It was not a rogue group of robots, though it was robot technology. We believe it was part of an attack that never happened. A distraction. But of course, I stopped them before they could get further with whatever their plan was. But like I was saying, I am glad to meet you. You are a legend in my circles, the one that successfully pulled off that operation in the Arctic. I hear you single-handedly took on 4 or 5 of those alien creatures by yourself. Is that true?
Never mind all that, Franklin. The real question you should be asking is, why have you been called in to see me?
Now that you mentioned it, I was surprised to get the call.
Just know that it wasn't my idea, but you have been asked to join a secret group of the brightest and best minds to research and possibly aid in the fight against a new enemy.
And what enemy would that be?
We don't know yet, but we have intercepted a strange signal that doesn't seem human-made.
Not human-made? So AI again?
Franklin, AI was human-made. 11 others are already on board with this mission. None with real experience in the field, though, and the president personally wanted you to be a part of the team to be that guy. The president asked for you by name because of your many accolades.
Okay, so what's this mission, and who else is on my team? Do I know anyone?
Probably not, though I bet you will get along with them fine. I hear they also like that dumb game you play.
Fantasy football? Alright, I've been looking to get a new league going.
I will not hear about that slacker stuff. Just watch this debriefing video to get up to speed.
Yes, sir.
If you are listening to this, that means you are the best of the best. The world needs you, Franklin George Wilkins III, as we are facing a new unknown threat. 25 days ago, a strange signal was found coming from the Mediterranean. It was later traced back to Egypt, specifically Giza. We believe it is from the Great Pyramid, but the signal has been growing stronger each day and seems to be affecting geological disturbances around Egypt. Their government asked for our help, and we have a stake in this as well, because if this is an invasion, we will be signing another world treaty to get cooperation from all countries to fight this threat. You are the final one to be added to this team based on your expertise in fieldwork. The others joining you are Miriam Belfry, an expert in computer hacking, helped Dr. Constance Landry design the computer virus to end the robot war, of course. William Johnson, an expert in engineering and technology, helped upgrade the military arsenal and other gadgets for the field. Joseph Peel, a newly promoted agent from the NSA, considered a math genius. Javier Rodriguez, an expert in mechanical operations management. Colonel Luna Lee, a military liaison with strategic experience. Bella Stewart, a mathematician with experience cracking codes. FBI agent Dana Budding scored highest ever in the academy, expertise in profiling and research, worked on paranormal cases in the past. Mohammed Hassan, an expert in data operations. James Henry Powell IV, a newly promoted agent from the CIA, expertise with infiltration. Sandra Cook, an expert in coding and hacking. And Lieutenant General Winston Stewart, another military liaison, the fastest from cadet to lieutenant general in military history. And now you, Franklin George Wilkins III, one of the most decorated field agents of all time, former director of the CIA, some of the most famous operations in human history, a jack of all trades with expertise in computer and mechanical engineering, military operations, and communications. This mission is top secret, and you will live in a bunker underneath the United Nations building with your fellow team members until the job is done. This might be a very long mission, but the goal is to help figure out the source of this signal and whether there is another foul play happening. We have some evidence of paranormal activity within the region, so we need to define this activity with the help of several scientist teams that will be working in the installation under Washington, D.C. Each of you has a major role in this mission. For you, Franklin, you will be tasked with leading the team. We need research, reconnaissance, and clear reports to General Mulberry and the President each week. Your first task will be to travel to the Great Pyramid with Colonel Luna Lee FBI agent Dana Budding, and Mohammed Hassan. You must be covert and secretive, so you will be disguised as tourists with Mohammed as your tour guide. It will be up to you, Franklin, to lead this team and divvy out the tasks. Mohammed is more likely to get information from locals, of course. Good luck. This recording will self-destruct.
Egypt with people I've never met before. It should be interesting.
You leave in 2,400 hours, so get some rest. It is up to you to book hotels and accommodations to further cement your disguises. Upon your return, you will all see where you will be headquartered in New York. A car will pick all of you up at the airport. You are dismissed.
Thanks, General. I won't let you down. I am sending out this message to all my fellow Shadow Brigade members. Congrats to our co-commissioner and founder, Miriam Belfry, on winning the first reboot season of the Green Bowl. I'm pretty sure you should thank my sister. Once she found out I didn't draft her with my number one pick, she told me she was going to have the greatest season in history. 7,345 yards, 65 touchdowns, and no interceptions later, and my eventual Super Bowl champion sister allowed you to destroy me in the semifinals and embarrass James in the finals. I, of course, am in Rome now investigating that newly found signal, and it appears to be identical to the one we investigated in Egypt. It's not man-made, it's clearly otherworldly, and the government here believes they actually recorded this signal on and off throughout history. They granted me access to some files, and this signal goes all the way back to the year 1903 as far as I can tell. Dana and James tell me that the new signal in Paris is similar and dates back to the year 1865. We of course already know that the signal in Egypt goes back to at least the 1700s, but there are also legends of some disturbances back in ancient Egypt. Not sure what all this means, but we need to compile a report to General Mulberry and the President immediately. While there aren't geological disturbances here or in Paris, we have set up several local scientist teams here to monitor anything. They will report back to us. Of course, they are also secretive like us. The Italians seem to have a cooler name than that lame Shadow Brigade moniker, though. They call themselves Eroi del Tempo. That translates into Heroes of Time based on the signal's strange past origins. I know we have those stories of shadows that seem to be living in Egypt, but even Dana says that they are most likely people's eyes playing tricks on them. We do have a theory that the signals could affect humans, though, much like a sonic attack can, so we are still doing some research into whether there are significant injuries that can be traced back to the signal. Until next time, over and out. Brother of a champion. Since we got in trouble last time for speaking of fantasy football on our recordings, I sent you this letter. Don't worry. I sent it before I left for Egypt, so we can't get in trouble for blowing the covert operation, but I just wanted to say thanks for dropping that defense in week 4. I am so glad I could repay you for that generosity by using it against you in the championship. 35 points. I also thank you for playing a defense that had -2 points. What was that final? 102.1 or 101.1? Yeah. P.S. I never forgot your bold statement of declaring yourself champion after your undefeated regular season. And let me tell you, the champagne tasted really good last night. Green Bowl champion, Colonel Luna Lee. Oh, Luna. I remember when you were just an uptight military officer who needed many weeks of convincing to even help us start this league. Fantasy football gods, you always surprise me.
Franklin, you have a phone call from General Mulberry. Says he couldn't reach you in your room.
Sorry, James. I took the day off to mourn my defeat. Tell the General I'll call him back later.
Tell him yourself. He just arrived, phone in hand. Not looking too pleased.
Of course. Okay, send him and Winston in.
Franklin, you better have a damn good reason why you didn't answer.
I was just reading some documents, sir.
I don't want to hear it. This is important. From the President. A new task for you and Lieutenant General Stewart.
What's this about, sir?
You two, Javier and William, will be off to Paris again. Sandra's work on the encrypted file that was found there has unearthed something very interesting.
And what would that be, General?
I'm sure you will be very pleased. Information on a fantasy football league from many years ago, and a trophy called the Green Bowl.
What? Is this a joke? I get it. Ha ha, General. Payback for catching us communicating about league matters on mission recordings.
I wish it was a joke. But it isn't. The file speaks of the original trophy and some sort of prophecy about a champion going to Egypt to stop an interdimensional force and banishing it from our dimension. A helicopter awaits outside to take you to the airport. Get ready. Meet me at the pad.
What the hell is that all about?
Well, it's either the most elaborate prank and the general has a cooler side we didn't know about, or the most ridiculous misinformation campaign from a foreign power. Either way, I guess we're gonna learn something interesting. Give me 15 minutes.
Franklin, nice job taking down Sandra last week. Helped me in the standings, too.
James, just come to terms that this is finally my year. You have never made the playoffs in 4 seasons.
Hey, I'm getting better. But I mean, who would have thought that Winston would have the 3 best handcuffs for the playoffs after those insane injuries last season? I really thought you were the top team, going in undefeated again.
Well, based on the history of the league that Miriam told us, there is something called the curse of the number 1 seed. Apparently, number 1 seeds have not fared too well historically. Guess I'm just another victim. But I feel like that luck is about to change this year.
Yeah, anyway, I'm buzzing you to talk about that meeting I had with the general since you were still sleeping from that weird occurrence in Egypt.
You mean the maniac with the strange eyes that tried to grab me? All part of the job, I guess.
Well, apparently, Joseph and Bella have been able to develop an algorithm that follows the signal's moves. Kind of. Javier helped William develop a device for military ships that also uses it. You know that strange weather that started to happen at Mount Rushmore the other day? The odd weather at the Florida Keys? Bella sent a report to the president about it a month ago, predicting it.
So we believe it is related to the signal?
Yeah, that's the belief. Apparently they are creating some sort of scientist team to truly study the signal and how it is related to the weather patterns. They wanted to know who you might recommend.
That's easy. Dr. Constance Landry. I worked with her during the Robot Wars. I was actually surprised that she wasn't on our team, so having her work in tandem would be beneficial to us all, believe me.
That's what I told them. Those science lectures you sent me are great. I'm learning so much. Of course, I did minor in physics, so...
I'm sure you understand science better than me. Probably my biggest weakness. So what's the next move?
To aid in what they're calling Project Peter Pan, they want you to investigate Mount Rushmore further. Dana's going with you, Mohammed and Luna are headed to Egypt, and I'm off to Paris with Bella and Sandra. And the others are supposed to stay behind, continue to research. We will be sending information back to them, and they'll relay the information to General Mulberry and the President.
I couldn't have planned it better myself.
Thanks, Franklin. I'm also getting better at this. Talk to you soon. Over and out. Franklin. Franklin. I lost contact with everyone else. Are you there?
I'm here, James. Glad to hear your voice. This isn't very good. My computer told me that someone left the bunker several hours ago, and that's when everything went haywire.
I believe Miriam went out for a smoke, stressed out about not hearing about her mother in months. Is this really the work of these living shadows you were talking about?
According to Dr. Landry and Dr. Musgrave, it is. Are you safe?
I hope so. I'm in my room. I have this package meant for you from Dr. Landry. I meant to give it to you, but once I saw Sandra and Javier's eyes, I ran to my room. Survival instincts, you know.
I understand, James. But that package could be our ticket out of here. Dr. Landry was apparently researching an unknown element, something that appeared to be unaffected by the shadows. Perhaps something that could save us from this infection.
I just opened the package here. Some pieces of metal, gloves, chemicals, and a syringe. No instructions, of course. What does this mean?
I have no idea, James. We've lost contact with anyone outside, almost like our signals are being jammed. General Mulberry apparently was headed to the lab the last I spoke with him, but I haven't heard anything since.
Strange. The metal seems like a part of a ship's hull.
Ship's hull? Wait, James, don't touch the metal. That's what Dr. Landry was using in her experiments. James! James! James!
The world's essence slows, shadows spread from the pyramids to the oceans to the coasts. But behold the test, a smoking gun, a quest passed down for generations. A prophesized hero, the champion. In order to save everyone, thou must drink from the cup. 12 of us on this mission, once edge and fight for humanity reach the goal. It's the quest for the green ball. Green ball.
Welcome to the quest for the Green Ball, the Shadows of Chaos. I'm your host, Anthony Otso, bringing you this fantasy football show with a twist, and we just learned a pretty big chunk of information about the Shadow Brigade, just like we learned who are some of the true contenders in this league. 2 division titles could be clinched here in Week 12 as we enter back into interdivisional play. One team is already eliminated from the playoff picture, and a few others are on life support, but the race for the top 6 is still very much alive and is expected to go down to the wire in Week 14. We will get into all of that in the previews later in the show, and I will also be joined by Green Acres Nate Dogg later to discuss his Game of the Week win at the Blue Dunes. I'll also break down our league standings so everyone can visually see where our league is at heading into Week 12 and to see how competitive it really is. But first, we have to go over another insane week of results as we finished out of division play with a bang. First, the marriage belt was on the line as the Central Territory's Meow Master traveled to the Western Territory to take on Galgal at the Golden Sands. Galgal entered with a 69.5% chance to win, and it doesn't hurt to have the 4th best non-quarterback weekly score in league history as Jonathan Taylor went off for 204 total yards and 5 touchdowns, scoring 50.4 points. Galgal won 97.24 to 51.68, so that big game by Taylor was a huge reason to survive this one. Najee Harris scored another touchdown, and Mike Williams had a 50-plus yard score, but there isn't much else to say. Meow Master had almost all of her points by Jalen Hurts, who rushed for 3 touchdowns, but no coaching was the factor again. Galgal moves to 7-4 overall and is now in first place by 1 game in the Western Territory. 2-time champion Meow Master falls to 2-9 and is now officially eliminated from playoff contention in one of the most embarrassing ways possible. The Eastern Territory's multiple scoregasms travel to the Central Territory to take on my Great Superior Superb Owls at the Great Superior Eye. My Superb Owls had a 72% chance to win once Nick Chubb was taken off the COVID-19 list, and besides Patrick Mahomes and Josh Jacobs underperforming, the rest of the team did quite well in a 111.4 to 69.42 win. Nick Chubb had 144 yards and a score, and Deebo Samuel had 94 yards and a rushing touchdown. Tyreek Hill had 110 total yards, and George Kittle and Myles Gaskin also found the end zone. Nick Folk and the Browns defense combined for 26 points as well. Landry and Robinson scored for the Scoregasms, and Godwin had 72 total yards and a score on Monday night, but it wasn't enough. The Superb Owls move to 7-4 overall and remain a game up in the Central Territory. The multiple Scoregasms fall to 4-7 and most likely need to win out to make the playoffs. The Stellar Bitches of the Western Territory travel to the Philosopher Swamp to take on Loki Lebowski Thor of the Central Territory. Lebowski Thor did come into this match with a 52% chance to win once moves were made, and it ended up being a little more lopsided than that in a 111.74 to 47.58 victory. Cousins finished with 341 passing yards and 3 touchdowns at quarterback, and number 1 overall pick McCaffrey added 119 yards and a score. Moore caught a touchdown as well, and Ellen had 112 yards. Boswell also kicked well with 3 field goals and 4 extra points. On Monday, the Buccaneers defense added 2 sacks and 3 forced turnovers. In fact, the Bucs D and Boswell outscored Myers and the Bills defense on the Bitches side 29-0. The Bitches struggled mightily, of course. Mike Evans had 83 total yards and a score on Monday night, but no one else scored over 10 points. It also didn't help that the Bills defense had that negative 5-point score in a very surprising dud of a game. Lebowski Thor keeps pace in the Central Territory at 6-5, back 1 game in the standings. The Stellar Bitches fall to 6-5 and are now in second place in the Western Territory. The Western Territory's Uncle Justy traveled to the Eastern Territory to take on Risky Business at the Old Kingdom. Risky Business came in with a 61.2% chance to win, and it all came down to Monday night with Tom Brady doing enough in an 88.98 to 76.66 victory over Uncle Justy, the first win of the season for Risky Business at his home base of the Old Kingdom. Brady finished with 307 passing yards and 2 scores, and Scary Terry McLaurin had 103 yards and a touchdown. Lockett added 115 yards, and the Eagles defense had a pick 6. Josh Allen had a couple of touchdowns for Uncle Justy, including one to Stephon Diggs, and Zerline had 3 field goals, but no one else really stepped up here. Risky Business moves to 6-5 and remains 2 games back in the Eastern Territory. Uncle Justy falls to 5-6 and is 2 games back in the Western Territory. The Western Territory's Siamese Dreamcats visited Liberty's Watch in the Eastern Territory to take on Remember the Titans. The Dreamcats did have a 60% chance to win, but a late inactive for Lamar Jackson meant a 0 at quarterback, and that was the difference in a 78.72 to 71.1 victory for Remember the Titans. Justin Jefferson went off for 172 total yards and 2 touchdowns to lead Remember the Titans here, and Kelsey added a rushing touchdown and 78 total yards. Joe Burrow also threw a touchdown, but it was to the Dreamcats' Jamar Chase. The Ravens defense did do well for the Cats with 3 sacks and a turnover. Cook added 115 yards and a score with a 2-point conversion run as well, and Connor also scored. But the 20-plus points on the bench hurt in the end. Remember, the Titans moves to 6-5 overall and is firmly in the playoff race. The Dreamcats fall to 5-6 and will need a strong finish to get back in the playoff race. And that brings us to where Central Territory's My Heart Will Go On visited the Eastern Territory's Green Acres at the Blue Dunes.
My Heart Will Go On entered with a 57.5% chance to win, but this match was nothing like anyone expected, let alone the computers. In fact, it came down to Sunday night, the battle of Austin Eckler versus Deontay Johnson deciding it. Of course, Eckler went off for 115 total yards and 4 touchdowns, besting Johnson's 101 yards and a touchdown to lead Green Acres to a 152.92 to 134.4 win. The other big player for Green Acres was the dominant Patriots defense, which shut out Atlanta on Thursday night by allowing less than 200 yards and collecting 4 sacks and 4 interceptions, including one that was returned for a touchdown, kind of in garbage time. Mixon added 123 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Thielen scored as well. Tagovailoa had 2 passing touchdowns to pad that point total as well. My Heart Will Go On was a formidable opponent, though. Aaron Rodgers went off for 385 passing yards and 4 touchdowns, including a 50-plus yard score, and Devontae Adams added 115 yards and 2 touchdowns. DeAndre Swift had 139 total yards and a score, and Waller had 116 yards. In the end, though, the 34-2 advantage for Green Acres at defense was the clear deciding factor here. Green Acres is now 8-3 overall and is now first overall in the league. Has been there for a while. Several games up on Risky Business with a chance to clinch the division in Week 12. My Heart Will Go On falls to 4-7 overall and probably needs to win out to make the playoffs now. And of course, I am joined by Green Acres, otherwise known as Nate Dogg, to discuss this big win and his season so far, which has gone pretty well. What's happening, man? You got to be pumped from this type of performance on a spotlight match like this late in the year, kind of hitting your stride.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I was going to lose when it came to like the mid-afternoon games. I checked the score, and the Raiders defense just started, so they had 20 points, and she had like 120. And I was like, oh man. Even though I was doing good with the Patriots D, I thought I was out, but Joe Mixon had a really good game, and then Eckler came through. And the bonus with Mixon is he was scoring on the Raiders defense. So
yeah, for sure, that's huge. And continuing to talk about the game too, I did see that it was crazy, and you kind of answered this a little bit. I'm guessing you were nervous at a little point. But you had to have a lot of fun when Austin Eckler started to do his thing on Sunday night, because Deontay Johnson obviously had a good game too, and when he scored, My Heart Will Go On was right there with you, and if things go a different way, or he had several opportunities to score again later. So were you having fun, or were you really nervous on Sunday?
In the mid-afternoon, I was nervous, but then when the Sunday night game started, I was only down by 1 point with Eckler, and I was feeling pretty good.
Yeah, so
and he definitely came through big time.
Oh yeah, that was a pretty crazy performance. I mean, when he got his third touchdown, I was like, oh okay, this game's over. and then he got a fourth one. It's just 150 points. You can't go wrong there. I do have to say that one thing I've noticed with you've been one of the most active coaches on the waiver wire this season. I believe you have close to 40 adds and drops total, and it has worked wonders because you're 8-3 overall. You're on the cusp of a division title. What's your secret to choosing the right players every week? Because there's been some other players in the league that have done this, and they're not doing as well. So,
well, I stream a lot. I've streamed a lot of quarterbacks and a lot of defenses, but it's all just based on the quarterback.
Yeah.
The quarterback. If there's a bad quarterback playing a good any defense, I'll take him.
Yeah.
I'll take the defense. And then if there's a good any quarterback playing a bad defense, I'll take the quarterback. So
I got you, and it's worked pretty good. I mean, are you a little surprised by your record so far that you're number one? I mean, or is this something you expected? I mean, you're literally about to clinch a division title as early as next week.
Well, I started off 1-2, I think, but then I have three pretty solid running backs, and I haven't had any injuries. So that plus like finding the Patriots defense.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of did it old school with the running backs and the defense as well, kind of leading you in this one. But
the Patriots start having better. They're playing better teams, so we'll see.
Yeah, that is true. I do have to say, for the defense, I mean, the Patriots obviously on a tear right now. You picked them up as a streamer at the right time. But I also know that streamers sometimes do great one week and then bad the next because of the way that the matchups work. Even the best number one defense will have negative games like the Bills have had. So, we as fantasy coaches tend to drop a team right away and choose the best matchup possible. So what made you kind of roll with the Patriots there? I mean, there was a matchup that was maybe on the cusp in the middle. So, I mean, did you just decide to just keep going with them after they scored a lot of points, or what was your mindset there?
Yeah, I don't know. I got lucky. I think they played like the Browns, and there was maybe another team that was looking like they could do pretty good against the defense. But I picked them up the week after they gave up like 580 yards to the Cowboys and had like -2 points.
Yeah.
But they were playing the Jets, so I was like, all right, they're going to do pretty good against the Jets. And then I don't know, they just started playing well, so I was just like, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, they're going nuts, and sometimes turnovers aren't sustainable, but I feel like they're just making ridiculous plays all game. The fact that they shut out Atlanta, and it's not like Atlanta's offense is that bad. I know they're missing guys, and Matt Ryan will throw interceptions, but at the same time, like, to shut out Atlanta is a little crazy. I couldn't believe that happened.
I know. I mean, Matt Ryan's not in his prime, but still, he's like a solid quarterback that you wouldn't expect would get shut out.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, his backup threw the pick six, so that was.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
glad
true.
they put in a backup.
They put in multiple backups and they all threw an interception too. That's pretty insane when that happens. It's also funny because technically, I'm sure even Bill Belichick would have wanted the guy to just go down so they can kneel out the clock, but he decided to run in a touchdown for you. Like that's always nice when the defense decides to just I'm gonna score. You know,
you gotta play for fantasy.
Yeah. I definitely know there are guys that do that for sure. So, before we finish up here, obviously it's a great win for you, but I do want to ask your thoughts on our, post-apocalyptic theme we got going on so far. Of course, everyone watching this episode's already saw the intro to the episode. You obviously haven't, as we're recording this before the episode comes out, but, we get another major story updates, learning more about the Shadow Brigade. But from what you've seen, I mean, are you digging it? Do you like playing at the Blue Dunes, pictured behind me here?
It's a pretty sweet background, I gotta say. But yeah, no, I'm feeling the season. Like the team's doing well. No real injuries so far, so if I can keep that up.
Yeah, and you're doing good at the Blue Dunes, I have to say. So I mean, that's always going to bode well when you win your home matches, I guess. So obviously, what a wild week! Congrats on that win. Perhaps we'll meet again in the playoffs. I know you bested me earlier this year, but maybe we'll meet in the title game. It'll be even more nuts, But obviously, these are some big weeks, and even though we're close to, I'm also close to clinching a division title. But even though we're close, anything could happen. You could go on a losing streak, fall down to a low seed, whatever, and just run into a team with Jonathan Taylor scoring 6 touchdowns. But
if the Patriots D plays the Colts, I might have to sit them.
Yeah, I don't blame you. It's kind of crazy to think that. I did not expect that. So. Thanks again for Green Acres for joining me this week. I will now dive deeper into our league standings to show everyone just how difficult it really is to make the playoffs when you see how close we really are and look at all the tiebreaker scenarios and all that. When you have a competitive league, making the playoffs is probably harder than winning the championship, and that's what we got here. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, so we're going to start with the Eastern Territory here. In the Eastern Territory, we have Green Acres at 8-3 overall, 2 games up on both Risky Business and Remember the Titans, who are both 6-5. The multiple scoregasms are 4-7 and cannot win the division title. While it looks like Green Acres is cruising here, a 1-2 start in the Eastern Territory with losses to both Risky Business and Remember the Titans means this division title can still go to the final week of the season. Green Acres needs a win over Remember the Titans in Week 12 and a Risky Business loss to clinch the title this week. A loss can really mix things up, though, as that would leave the door open for both Remember the Titans and Risky Business. In our league, if two teams are tied in the head-to-head tiebreaker, then divisional record is the second tiebreaker for the division title. Points is third. For wildcard berths, points is obviously second to the head-to-head tiebreakers. But we really wanted to make the division record important here. And this is to create a sense of realism. The team that scores the most points obviously always doesn't win and always doesn't make the playoffs. And we feel like you should win your games to justify that playoff spot. So that's what makes this division. It could be clinched and it could go all the way down to Week 14 based on what happens this next week. Now moving on to the Central Territory, my great superior Superb Owls are 7-4, 1 game up on Low-Key Lebowski Thor with the head-to-head tiebreaker at the moment, but we play this week. A win by my Superb Owls means that I guarantee the head-to-head tiebreaker and go up 2 games with 2 to go, which will clinch the division for me. But if Lebowski Thor wins, that means the divisional record is the next tiebreaker, and Lebowski Thor would actually go up over my Superb Owls and take over first place. So this division can also still go down to Week 14 depending on what happens. My Heart Will Go On is 4-7 and is still mathematically alive for a division title if My Heart Will Go On gets a lot of help. If My Heart Will Go On wins out, Lebowski Thor beats me in week 12 and loses to Meow Master in week 13, and I lose to Meow Master in week 14, then My Heart Will Go On will force a three-way tie for the division, and My Heart Will Go On would have the divisional record tiebreaker in that scenario. Meow Master is 2-9 and is the lone team eliminated, not just from the division title, but from the postseason altogether. And finally, we're going to move on to the Western Territory here, which is even more convoluted than the other two. Defending champion Gal Gal is 7-4 and is now 1 game up on the Stellar Bitches, which are 6-5, and 2 games up on Uncle Justy and the Siamese Dreamcats, which are both at 5-6. The Stellar Bitches do hold the head-to-head tiebreaker on Gal Gal, but not on Uncle Justy or the Dreamcats. Gal Gal holds the tiebreaker over Uncle Justy and the Dreamcats, though. The Dreamcats play Gal Gal in week 12, and a win by the Dreamcats would suddenly tie the head-to-head and keep the division alive to week 14 most likely. A loss eliminates the Dreamcats from division contention. An Uncle Justy win over the Stellar Bitches in week 12 would put Uncle Justy over the Bitches in the standings with the head-to-head tiebreaker. Ultimately, Gal Gal cannot clinch the division in week 12 because Uncle Justy would remain 2 games back with 2 to play with the win, or the Stellar Bitches would be 1 game back with the tiebreaker on her side. Gal Gal could also beat Uncle Justy in week 13, but if the Stellar Bitches won in both week 12 and 13 as well, then the division title would be decided in week 14. Essentially, the Stellar Bitches control their own destiny. Win out, and they win the division. Uncle Justy needs to win out and hope Gal Gal wins one other game to win the division. And the Dreamcats need to win out and hope Gal Gal loses to the Stellar Bitches to claim the division. Odds are that this division's going down to the final week, of course. But that's just divisions. The 3 wildcard berths are even more insane, and the tiebreakers and everything are so insane because they could switch up because of how close we all are. Right now, we got 4, 6, and 5 teams and only 3 spots available. So remember, the Titans is the first wild card at the moment based on a 2-1 head-to-head record against the other 6 and 5 teams. The 5th seed will go to Lebowski Thor by points tiebreaker, and the 6th seed goes to the Stellar Bitches with a head-to-head win over Risky Business. Of course, Risky Business and remember the Titans play again this season, which can further mess with these standings. Plus, you have Uncle Justy and the Siamese Dreamcats at 5-6, and they can suddenly be thrown into the mix for the playoff tiebreakers. The multiple scoregasms and My Heart Will Go On are 4-7, but if any of them win out, they can also be in a tiebreaker scenario for a wild card spot still. Of course, My Heart Will Go On could even win the division still. So we have a lot to play for with these games already almost taking on a playoff feel. I mean, we kind of have this playoff feel going into these last division games. That's what you want in a competitive league. Not to mention that the top 2 division winners get a bye into the semifinals. So winning a division doesn't mean anyone's relaxing down the stretch. You know, that bye is obviously going to be very important in this league, as it means you have to only win twice to get a title instead of 3 times. I mean, it is a gauntlet when you got to win 3 times. And I'm sure that anyone in competitive leagues understands just how crazy these last few weeks can get and how it looks like you might be in and then you go on a losing streak and you're out. So it's very important. Nothing is clinched. No one can relax. With that in mind, I think it's time to look ahead to week 12. In this Central Territory, 4-7, My Heart Will Go On travels to Ghost Mountain to take on 2-9 Meow Master. My Heart Will Go On has an insane 94.7% chance to win, with Meow Master taking 3 zeros and also having A.J. Brown hurt. Clearly, Jalen Hurts, Mike Davis, and A.J. Brown need to lead the team this week. Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams will be interesting to watch on the other side with a matchup against the Rams. And the Texans defense has the lowly Jets, so that is an interesting streamer. In the Eastern Territory, 6-5 Risky Business visits the Gateway Islands to take on the 4-7 Multiple Scoregasms. This is a big game, with the Multiple Scoregasms in danger of being eliminated from the playoff race, and Risky Business in danger of being eliminated in the race for the Eastern Territory title. Well, it's Risky Business who comes in with a 52.8% chance to win in what is expected to be a very close game. The Scoregasms will hope to win the advantage at running back with James Robinson and Antonio Gibson against A.J. Dillon and Alex Collins. Risky Business looks to get the advantage with McLaurin and Pittman versus Higgins and Myers in the wide receiver battle. This match might come down to quarterback and defense, though. Tom Brady and the Eagles' defense goes for Risky Business. Ryan Tannehill and the Colts' defense goes for the multiple Scoregasms. In the Western Territory, 7-4 Galgal travels to the Sea of Angels to take on the 5-6 Siamese Dreamcats. Of course, the Dreamcats need a win here to stay in both the division and wildcard race, and they enter with a 74% chance to win, while Galgal hasn't put in his kicker yet. The match is still 65% in the Dreamcats' favor, even with gold in, however. Dak Prescott versus Lamar Jackson is key. Also, can Delvin Cook keep up with Jonathan Taylor? And can Chase and Metcalf keep up with Mike Williams and Elijah Moore? The David Montgomery versus Kenyon Drake matchup in the flex could also be a difference maker. Also in the Western Territory, 5-6 Uncle Justy travels to the Misty Forest to take on 6-5 the Stellar Bitches. And this is a big match for both teams' divisional and wildcard aspirations. And Uncle Justy enters with a 52.4% chance to win. Josh Allen versus Matthew Stafford, Ezekiel Elliott and Miles Sanders versus Saquon Barkley and Kareem Hunt fresh off IR, and the Bills versus Bears defense could all be big deciders here. In the Eastern Territory, 6-5, remember the Titans travels to the Blue Dunes to take on 8-3 Green Acres. Green Acres does have a shot to clinch a division with a win and a Risky Business loss here, and he comes into the match with a 60.3% chance to win. Can Harris, Ingram, and Patterson keep up with Mixon, Eckler, and Henderson? Who will score more in the Adam Thielen versus Justin Jefferson match? And which defense will dominate in the battle between the Titans and Patriots? All key questions here. And that brings us to
The Game of the Week!
in this
Game of the Week!
we get a battle of legacy members with a Central Territory title in the balance as my 7-4 Great Superior Superb Owls take on 6-5 Low-Key Lebowski Thor, who's a two-time champion, mind you, because my Superb Owls won the earlier meeting this season, back in week 3. A win here puts me 2 games up with the tiebreaker, clinching the division title. But if two-time champion Lebowski Thor wins, that evens our head-to-head, like I said before, and Lebowski Thor will actually take over first place based on the second tiebreaker division record. So this is a very important game of the week here. A lot to play for. But before we get into any more on this huge matchup, let's take a trip to the next stop in our adventure, Lebowski Thor's home base, the Philosopher's Swamp.
Hello again. We've done it, everyone. This is the final home base to discuss of the regular season, and while we will revisit 2 other home bases before the playoffs, this is the last big piece of the puzzle when it comes to the power nodes in our region. And of course, this matchup seems to be one where a chosen one contender can emerge, but we will learn more about that later. First, let's take a look at the Philosopher's Swamp. This is a strange place indeed, because besides the Misty Forest, this is one of the last places known to have trees. While I passed by here, I could only get so close because of the swampiness of the area and the dangers that exist all around. An acidic fog seems to roam like a security guard, instantly creating skeletons that coat the bottom of the muddy waters. Of course, if you escape the fog, there are flesh-eating fish that spew poisons all around. I unfortunately was attacked by one, but luckily had a barrier on my legs to prevent infection, and I escaped unharmed. There's an old hut in the middle of all these dangers, with our lore mentioning an old wise man who inhabits the swamp as a prisoner of the shadows. Not sure who this might be, but he is said to be older than our calendars. Perhaps the wise man knows about the shadows. Perhaps this is just a legend.
But whatever the case, the Shadows really went through a lot of trouble to prevent anyone from reaching the hut. It isn't far-fetched to think that no one can escape this hut, either. Of course, even if you found a way to get past the fog and the fish, don't trust the trees. Unlike the misty forest trees that survive due to the strength of the power node, these trees seem strategically placed. A strange black goo drips like sap down the trunks, and it is highly likely that the trees are listening for the Shadows. Now back to the match.
My great superior Superb Owls enter with a 55.4% chance to win after I plug in one of the waiver pickups for Lebowski Thor that has yet to be added to his lineup. It's 65.7% as is with his empty flex. It's a little bit of a surprise that my Superb Owls are favored here with Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill on a bye, but I'm guessing that this is going to be a very close match regardless, with a lot of matchups that could decide it. You got Nick Chubb, who's been a maniac when healthy, but Kareem Hunt might be back from IR, so can Chubb keep up with Christian McCaffrey with another back faltering his points? Deebo Samuel and Darnell Mooney have been on fire lately, so Lebowski Thor is going to be looking for Keenan Allen and DJ Moore to keep up or steal some extra points if possible. And of course, you have George Kittle, drafted by Lebowski Thor and dropped when he was on IR. On the side of the Superb Owls here, a bit of revenge match for Kittle maybe? I don't know, but Lebowski Thor might be looking to go with Ayuk as well in the hopes that he scores the touchdowns over Samuel and Kittle in what could be a shootout with the Vikings, something that would also be in the favor of Lebowski Thor as he has Kirk Cousins at quarterback. But there are two clear keys in this matchup. On Lebowski Thor's side, I'm going with tight end Dalton Schultz. As I said before, Lebowski Thor dropped Kittle instead of stashing him on his reserve, and now he is going up against him. It would really be salt to the wounds if that is why he loses here, but Schultz can really turn the tables in a big way. The Cowboys are already without Amari Cooper, who has COVID-19, and CeeDee Lamb, of course, is still in the concussion protocol, though he is practicing. Regardless, Schultz is going up against a team that is ranked 28th against tight ends in the Las Vegas Raiders, and he has 6 or more targets in all but 3 games so far, collecting 44 receptions for 491 yards and 3 touchdowns this season. Lebowski Thor would love for Schultz to score here and to help keep Michael Gallup out of the end zone on my Superb Owl side. Multiple scores by Schultz could be a game changer. But my Superb Owls, of course, I'm going with Cam Newton. I mean, who else? Who else would be my key? With Mahomes on a bye, this was the best backup I could have gotten. Newton did well in a matchup against Washington last week, showing off his legs as well as his arm, and we all know how rushing quarterbacks can be a bit of a cheat code. Newton gets another good matchup against Miami here, which is 28th against quarterbacks, allowing 3,199 yards and 20 touchdowns to the position, also allowing a rushing touchdown and 182 yards. The Dolphins do have 7 interceptions, but there is one thing to watch with Newton. Any rushing touchdowns also vulture McCaffrey on the other side, and Newton can also cancel out receiving touchdowns by both Moore and McCaffrey. Overall, I would say that a good game by Newton is probably going to go a long way here, and I'm hoping Cam Newton leads me to the division title. That's the show for the week. I hope you enjoyed it. Next week, the mysterious stranger learns some much-needed information at the bunker near Liberty's Watch, and the first playoff spots could be decided and could be celebrated in the next episode, but there'll be more wild things going on as well. Before we go, let's check out the power rankings headed into Week 12. Happy Thanksgiving.
Please follow the SunDried Tomatoes YouTube channel and watch content including original shows like Legends of the Diamond, random reactions, and Brewing the Facts, the SunDried Tomatoes podcast in video form, and other sports, brewing, or entertainment-related videos. You can like the Facebook page and follow me on Instagram at eclectic_yotso for news updates and just to get to know me better.